Well, hope you feel better.
Yeah, thank you. Marcus, do we have an idea of who RSVP'd for this besides Leanne? I think Len's out. Tom's going to try to join by phone. I think.
Um, Carol Nash, she'll be in a little bit later, about 1:15 due to testing. Lynn is out. Yeah.
What about Mark?
Mark, didn't get a reply.
Okay. I got a message from Greg. You might remember that the city wanted to, just as sort of an anticipatory move, to paint a general outline of the building footprint in the parking lot in Waynesboro. So they were setting up to do that today, apparently.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, another, kind of brick in the wall, so to speak, in
Absolutely.
terms of getting stuff rolling.
It looks huge too, by the way. So if
Greg,
you
I
walk,
didn't know you were
if
on.
you walk it out, so it's just going to be a square, nothing fancy, but I'll give people
Sure.
a general idea. So
Okay. Well, that was nice of you all to do that.
it helps set the stage, visualize people, the view, and all that. So
Sure. Are you at Sunset Park right now?
nope, well, that's where the picture is, but I'm not there. So
Yeah, okay. I kind of figured.
yep.
All right. Well, we'll give people a minute or two to join in. I don't know when you jumped in, Greg, but Len's out. Tom's going to try to join by phone. We haven't heard from Mark. Carol will have to be late as she's testing. Marcus, did we hear from Maggie?
Down there.
Huh?
I'm here.
Maggie's right there.
Oh, geez, sorry. You didn't come up on my my little, whatever you call it, menu of people.
And we also have Scott on the line here from JMU. Just try to introduce himself. He's Rick
Okay.
equal there. He's taking over for JMU on the project. And just wait till we get started and let him do an introduction.
Okay. And Tom, are you on the phone? I see a 540 area code calling in. Well, I'm going to presume that's Tom. All right, I got 103. Let's just give it to 105 and see who we get, because at this point we're missing 2 of the 3 trustees. Unless Tom can jump in. And he might just be listening for all I know. He might be I know he's in upstate New York, so he might be fly fishing as we speak and just has an earbud in. Does not want to do anything more than keep up to date here.
Yeah, that's Tom's phone number.
Okay, good. All right, we'll let him continue to monitor. All right, I have 105.
You guys hear me?
Yes. Welcome, Tom.
Oh, good. All right.
Tom, you're the only trustee that's on the call right now, but I understand with you kind of listening in, it might be difficult for you to run today's meeting. So do you want me just to walk through the agenda?
Yes, please. That'll work.
Okay. All right. If you'd all give me a second, I'll make sure to pull it up here and we'll get rolling. All right. Okay. The first item in our agenda is to approve the minutes from April 2024. We don't have trustees for that, so we'll move on to introductions. So, Jonathan, can I ask you to kind of facilitate this part of the agenda?
Sure. So just kind of update on activities, working with.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Oh.
No, sorry. Introduction. We got to introduce Scott and everyone around. So since you know Scott already.
Yeah, just update that Scott is now on board here. Rick Miller unfortunately had to retire on us, so Scott has taken over his position from JMU, and then I think he's here. He's going to do a quick introduction of himself, and then we can bounce around the Zoom room here after that.
Hi there, everyone. Glad to see everyone, and hopefully I'll catch up with actually meeting you in the near future. I've been with JMU as a project manager for close to 18 years now, and worked with Rick for a large majority of that time, probably 15 years. And I'm a registered architect, and I've handled a great variety of projects. So I've got a lot of experience that doesn't necessarily translate to a lot of knowledge, but I'll try to carry that off. But anyways, welcome any questions you might have. And I'm sure Jonathan will pass around my email address if you have any future questions.
Absolutely. And then just for Scott's benefit, I know most of us know each other, but if we could jump around, Greg, you want to kick it off?
Get off mute here. So I'm Greg Hitchen. I'm Director of Economic Development and Tourism for the City of Waynesboro.
Maggie?
I'm Maggie Van Huss. I'm a former educator and former Y employee. I've been a member of the CCR board for a considerable amount of time, and this project is very near and dear to my heart.
Fantastic. Tom on the phone?
I'm Benzing. I'm also retired from JMU, so I guess I'm joining Rick, him by a few months. I'm also serving as a trustee on the board of the museum and have been since September 2015, and chair of the Waynesboro Advisory Committee.
Done a great job also there. Leanne?
Well, I'm retired from Richard Bland College, there for 40 years. Part of that time was as a professor, then director of advancement, and I've been a part of the Virginia Museum since before it was what it is now. So anything I can do to help, I'm willing to do.
Fantastic. We'll go to the conference room. You guys, Ryan and Marcus.
Hello, everyone. I'm Marcus James. I'm Mary Zell's successor. I play as the administrative coordinator for BMH. Been here for about 7 months and been in this role for about a month and a half.
Hey everyone, Ryan Barber. I'm the deputy director. I've been here forever. No, it's been about 19 years, so right there with you, Scott.
And then, of course, we have Zach in the background here as the VMN HQ on the screen, making sure everything runs smoothly for us today. I don't know if he's by his computer. You can do a quick introduction if he is. If not, looks like moving back over to Dr. Kuiper.
Hey, Scott, Joe Kuiper. I'm the museum's director. Been involved in this project since only just a year or two after I started here in 2010. You hear the acronym bandied around, CCR. It's Center for Cold Waters Restoration. They are our local nonprofit partner, along with the city and the Office of Economic Development and our academic partners, as well as other nonprofit partners. But CCR has really been kind of our primary go-to in terms of local knowledge, connections, ideas, strategies and so forth. So I hope at some point in the near future, just so everyone knows, you probably notice I'm not in my office. I came down with the crud this weekend. I'm trying to shake it off. So when I get back to the office, maybe I can reach out and maybe we can kind of do a briefing on, you know, the state of the project. I don't know how much Rick passed on to you. And of course, when the calendar allows, would love to have you down at our Martinsville facility. So that way you get an idea to, you know, see kind of our entire history and what has led up to the idea of developing a permanent branch of our museum in the Shenandoah Valley. Okay, that's everyone, Jonathan, right?
Fantastic. Yep, that's it.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm just going to roll through the rest of the agenda here. Updates and activities. Jonathan, why don't you go ahead and handle that as well?
Sure. So Scott hasn't had much to do yet. We're hopefully going to hit the ground rolling here shortly. We've had some movement on the budget front. So working with our budget analyst Ainsley, the remaining portion of the detailed design work funding has rolled through. So this is the funding that was originally appropriated back in 2019. We're finally getting the other part of that. Worked with her yesterday, getting all the forms submitted. There's several hurdles as an agency we have to jump through, and then once that's all complete, which it has been, we're just in the queue waiting for the funds. So certainly a step forward from we think it's coming here, you know, soon to, you know, here's the exact amount we plan to transfer to your account. We'll need an updated CO2. Then we're ready to move forward there. And then of course, looking at the agenda. So the detailed design, of course, we all know that schematics have been approved. We met with the AE firm Glavian Homes, just as a brief to let them know that there's money coming. They're still fans. They still like us. They're still willing to continue on with the project. So there's waiting to hear exactly when the funds are transferred over before we kick that off. They're professionals. We're professionals. We don't want to put their lives on hold until that money comes over. Into that process. That's about the state of things as far as detailed design work goes and the budget.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions? We still are kind of getting our ducks in a row in terms of scheduling new work sessions with Glavian Homes and Riggs Ward Design. But we're expecting that to happen in the near future so we can knock out the preliminaries and continue our requests for further funding.
So when you get the first dime of that, what's the time after that? 6 months or
6-9 months, something like that. We did a lot in schematic design, you know, so I'm hoping that that's going to translate over very well. Really, the state isn't really so concerned as what goes inside the building as the building itself. The building's pretty well designed. I know, and Jonathan, jump in if you want to add further details on this. But to me, it seems that the biggest thing is refining the design to ensure that it's, refining the design so that some of the more costly features are either modified through changes in the materials or through the way it's actually designed. So some of the swooping patterns that cut across the front of the building might need to be a little more angular, if you know what I mean,
Right.
you know, just to reduce costs and fit the needs of the state. All that said, again, the building plan, its square footage and everything like that is pretty well worked out. We just need to make sure it's kind of fit into the state's desires.
okay, thanks.
Jonathan, you got anything to add to that?
Just that the covered most of it, just that the design work is contingent on us making those changes. So our approval to move to preliminaries is contingent on certain changes to the design that we're already aware of. Like Dr. Kuiper said, we got a lot of work done in schematics. It was a grueling process. I think we got more detail than is typical for that. So moving forward, I think with those changes, it should be expeditious.
Good, thank you. Just a quick update on agenda item number 3, community. We had some, some pretty good community interactions. We had a proper presence at Riverfest. Greg, by all accounts, it looked like it went really well. I know weather was a little tough, but even with that, it just didn't seem to be a problem. So I guess there was a good head count for the day.
Yeah, I don't know what it actually was, but by all accounts, yeah, it's a pretty popular event. So rain's not keeping people away.
Right. And Maggie, you were at the CCR table. And I don't know if you have any other observations you want to add to it.
Now, I second what Greg said. It was pretty well attended. The kids certainly liked the opportunity to engage. So those little things that we give out in the questions, they enjoyed that a lot.
Good. Okay. Well, we had we didn't think to bring a clicker. That was one thing that we should think about in the future, because we don't know what proportion of the people who visited Riverfest came through. We had at least, say, 500 people, just based on the average kind of flow for the day. So we, of course, have Fall Foliage Fest coming up. We'll continue to stay engaged. If there are other opportunities, we'd like to hear about them. We were going to open up with Farmers Market. So that's every Saturday morning, starting this past weekend. We do have a volunteer coordinator. That's Mary Poulin, and we have several people who have kind of stepped up and said they want to spend some volunteer hours at our trailer there at the South River Preserve. Unfortunately, they didn't feel ready to do it this weekend. I think there were some schedule conflicts and whatnot, so they were a little less than confident about opening. So I mean, they're volunteers, so I wasn't going to hold their feet to the fire. So as such, we went ahead and postponed that. They told me they intend to be ready this coming weekend. So I'm sure just after a few stumbling blocks, we'll get into a rhythm. So for anybody in the gallery, anything else regarding community? Oh, didn't we have a lecture this month? I know I missed it. Well, it was April. That was our last one, I believe.
We had a lecture on wildfires.
Yes, the wildfire lecture. Okay. So now we have to look at scheduling 2024 for the fall. So Tom has been doing it for a number of years, and so we're going to need some help in terms of identifying speakers for the Wayne Science Talk series. Tom, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to that.
Oh, not really. We do have a couple of ideas, and I think Jenna has them in mind and probably bring them up at a CCR meeting, but we can also make sure that the museum knows a couple possible speakers.
Yeah, that's where we're going to need the help to identify the people who be given talks that be, thematic towards what the museum is all about. So, but we can do the legwork as far as setting things up, making invitations and so forth. So thank you for all of that. Is there anything else that anyone else wants to add about community connections? I forget when they occurred, but I know Len and I have given talks. I don't know if that timed out such that I reported those out at the last meeting or not, but we've continued to stay engaged with things like everyone from the Rotary clubs to Daughters of the American Revolution and others. So I think we're continuing that presence very nicely.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'll move on to my agenda is misnumbered. So instead of 4 planning, it's actually labeled as 5 planning, no problem there. So if we look at planning, first bullet point, Greg shared with us our kind of final report from McGuire Woods and their work as contracted to the city. So I'm going to open it up to Greg and Jonathan for their commentary. I would just say that it seems like we did all that we could and all that we should have done this past year. And I think we ought to open it up for discussion about what we do with McGuire Woods going forward. And that should dovetail into kind of a discussion of Waynesboro Advocacy Committee goals for the next fiscal year. So, Greg, since you shared the report, do you have anything that you want to say in particular about it?
No, I mean, I think we through McGuire Woods did everything we possibly could have done this year to get in front of who we needed to be in front of and amendments that needed to be amended and all that stuff. And it certainly was an asset having them on our side in the halls of the General Assembly building every day and behind the scenes with staff and so forth. He had some great suggestions on things we can do off out of session this summer. And I think we need to really look into how we can make some of those things happen, which I've not done, but we need to look at how to make some of those things happen. So,
Yeah, very good. I agree with that. And it was nice to get a checklist of very tangible topics, things that we can work forward and reach success.
right.
Jonathan, I know you poured through it. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think McGuire Woods did a great job working with the kind of newer group that we had in legislature this year. And then their direct connections with the delegates from the area, I think, was huge for us. I think they've really done a great job of making those connections and then getting us in front of the governor's staff for that meeting. I think that's about as much as you can ask for to get your 15 minutes to plead your case. I think their ability to pull all parties together, the city, economic development, the museum, the board of the museum, our foundation, I think that all went excellent. I think knowing that they did present a roadmap moving forward, I think keeping them on board to help steer the ship, I think would be there's a strong case to be made to have McGuire Woods and Preston help us in Richmond for sure, help the city in Richmond. And I think that he did absolutely lay out the perfect plan kind of moving forward, which we can discuss. He even gave us month by month on where we should be and kind of what goals we should orient ourselves toward.
Okay, and I'll just add to that the museum through its foundation has accumulated some funds, and some of which we've shared with the city to ensure that we have resources like McGuire Woods, working towards this common goal. As such, assuming that there isn't a dramatic price increase, it's something we could pursue again if that is the pleasure of the committee. So just FYI, if we have a similar budget laid out for next year, we should have no problems covering that. So Ryan and Marcus, I know you looked through it as well. Leanne, Maggie, I don't know if you had a chance to look through it. Does anybody else want to comment on the general report, or are you good?
I'll just echo that. I think it was really good to have the tangible steps and the importance on maintaining contact with legislators out of session. Not to replace their contact in session, but I think summer and fall activities is really good.
Yes, that's a good point. All right, what I'm going to suggest, and we can even, if somebody has another thought that they want to share at some point, it would certainly be appropriate later on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Marcus if you would share screen, and this is what I'll suggest. Can you just walk through, I forget what it is, 7 or 8 slides that we have. Just walk through the contents of each slide very briefly, and then circle back to the first one, and we'll engage in discussion with each one of those steps, if that sounds like a plan.
Absolutely.
And Marcus, just to camouflage the awkward silence, just please feel free to narrate each slide.
Oh, absolutely. So community connection, that includes lecture series, outreach, other experiences. For events, we also, for advocacy for Waynesboro, which also includes donor donor identification, corporate connections, grant opportunities, building further support, which is GA advocacy, lobbyists, submit formal requests, and also for any questions that we might have on this.
Yeah, so that's just kind of the overview of what we'll walk through. Mark Buss and Tom and the other trustees had suggested that we come up with some next year goals. So maybe if we just go to slide number 2 and kind of open it up.
For the detailed design, complete preliminaries.
Unless somebody has something to add there, since we kind of already discussed where we're going with that. I mean, I think that's obvious now that we have, well, just about have the final bit of funding in place. So anybody want to add anything else to that? All right, let's just skip right through.
Pardon me, I do have a question.
Sure.
So the detailed design, is that just like a design development phase, preliminary design phase, or is that all the way through working drawings?
So that'll just be the schematics and preliminaries. Then they'll go through another round of cost review. So we'll present another full budget to DEB. We'll have another legislative ask to move forward into that capital construction pool. And as part of that capital construction pool, as you know, they'll fund the working drawings portion of that. And that's, even further detail, you're defining that funnel in. You're getting electrical work done. You're figuring out that this duct work needs to go behind this plumbing, et cetera. It's the drawings we need to kick off construction. So yeah, detailed design in a nutshell is schematics, preliminaries, and it's just a routine part of the budget check process.
Right. Yeah, just making sure that I'm parallel thinking with what's being presented.
I know you guys are tier 3 institutions there, or tier 1 institutions, play by different rule book.
We make the rules.
You do.
Not true, not true. Just joking. All right, thanks.
Okay, next slide.
Volunteers and training.
Okay, well, I won't belabor the point here. We have a list of about 7 or 8 volunteers that are willing to work at the mobile outreach trailer. And as such, they can keep things open when staff are not available. Right now, it's slightly limited. We have it set up for power, for lighting only. When we have a large event like Riverfest or Fall Foliage Fest, we, of course, would have the generator rented that would go with it. This is one of those large trailer type generators that are needed to power the HVAC and the monitors and so forth. But the unit looks good. The updated exhibits look good. There may be a couple more tweaks coming in the exhibits. All the volunteers have kind of an overview form, if you want to call it crib notes or whatever. We have copies there in the trailer for any volunteers to use. And during Riverfest, we were able to walk, I think, 3 local volunteers through the exhibits in detail. So I think we've got the good start there. Again, next steps are going to be just to kind of get into a rhythm with openings. We'll use farmers market as a basis, but there may be other opportunities as well. And during our presentations and other community interactions, we'd certainly keep a sign-up sheet available for future volunteers. And if you know anyone who has a particular interest, particularly if they're good, I mean, I hate to be this way, but, not everyone's really cut out to be a volunteer, so you have to have more than just a heartbeat to do well at it. So, you know what I'm talking about. So if you find somebody who seems to have the talent, let's get them signed up. Let's go ahead and move on to next slide. Again, I think we just by chance had touched on these different things with CCR helping out the lecture series. Outreach is going to be primarily the trailer, and then other experiences that pertain to that. Um, uh, Ryan and Jonathan, do you guys know? I just don't recall offhand if we have any active scholarships for education programs in the Augusta County and Waynesboro City schools and surrounding areas?
I think we've utilized the ones we've been awarded, which is great. So I know Christie's got some pending outreach. So the great news there is that the ones we've gotten have been really snatched up quickly. So I think there's a lot of interest.
All right. And Tom, you'll have to refresh my memory where we stand with the student mentorship program that you worked on with John Miles.
Yeah, well, we called it a pilot, and we learned a lot doing it. But we decided that we really weren't ready to run it another year, maybe take a year off, and then try again. There were a couple of logistical issues that we struggled to overcome. One was working with the governor's school and getting the students from their home school in time to do the after-school program at the middle school in Waynesboro. It was a challenge. I think the summer program went particularly well. During the academic year program, it was a little more challenging. And we also learned that they have a limited number of hours that they can actually put towards this capstone experience compared to what we had expected. So those are kind of things we learned, and that's what happens when you do a pilot. That's why you do a pilot, right? The other thing I think we need to do is find more substantial source of funding. John and I did this largely, entirely unpaid. Did get a stipend for the students, but I think in order to run it sustainably, we're going to need to find more substantial source of funding.
That makes sense, and frankly said, it parallels what we've experienced in the past with different programs trying to work directly with schools and so forth. Everything from student availability to funding. So we appreciate that, and let us know how we can continue to support that, especially since we now have an outreach facility that might lend itself to such a project. All right.
Yeah, we'll definitely be thinking about that going forward.
Okay. All right. I'll open it up generally to community connections. Like I said, as part of the year's goals, we'll have the lecture series, the outreach. If we have some of these funds, grants and so forth that come through, and we're able to do more outreach in the classrooms, we'll continue that. And then, of course, what we mentioned in the last slide, having the outreach science trailer available to the public.
Joe, what is the status of the educator in Charlottesville now?
Oh, he's still active. So
Okay.
that's Bruce.
Okay, well, we need to take advantage of that more, I think.
Yeah. So again, if these funds come through for scholarships, I just leave it up to Christy to decide how she wants to handle that. If it turns out to be something that she feels that she or one of her team members should handle firsthand, or if Bruce can just travel over the mountain from Charlottesville to, say, do work in Augusta County and so forth. So yeah, that's certainly something that can be leveraged. He also has a schedule because he does have a pretty robust schedule just with what he normally does in Charlottesville and Albemarle County. So that's also something of a limiting factor, but I think it's a good point.
And when he does stuff in Charlottesville and Albemarle County, is he bringing the message of a branch campus potentially being formed in Waynesboro? Because I think that's a community we definitely need to communicate with.
Yeah, the short answer is no. I don't really even know how he's familiar, but I don't know how familiar he is, if it's just conceptual or whatever. And I can talk to Christy about that. I don't know about the feasibility of that. I know that, it's often, said, oh, well, you can talk to the kids and then the kids can talk to the parents. And sure, that might happen. We don't have any evidence that that happens well. The same thing goes with giving the kids propaganda that they can pass on to their parents. There are certain permissions that we have to overcome for that to happen. Right. Generally, what they say is, you can give it to central office and they'll distribute it as they see fit or whatever. So I'll have the conversation with Christy just to make sure we're not leaving any stones unturned. If we find something that we need to address, we will. So we'll just go ahead and take it from there.
I think, I noticed in the McGuire Woods report, a recommendation was that we bring in key officials from the state and legislators summer. Maybe Bruce is to be included in that, so he's aware of what's going on too.
Sure. I think that's a good segue to the next slide, if I remember correctly. So Marcus, can you go ahead and advance?
Yes.
Oh, well, so much for my memory. So this next slide is actually events. Excuse me one second. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. So we've kind of already talked about that. We're going to continue with a lot of these events, well, all the events that we can have a presence at. So Marcus, please go ahead and move on to the next slide.
Absolutely.
This will be the segue. So so related to the idea of these key officials and getting them connected with, which we'll continue discussion on. This is something, the advocacy part is something that's ongoing. So Ryan and I have kept our eyes out for these grant opportunities, and Ryan's done certainly a good job of keeping those opportunities at the forefront here. The corporate connections, we're continuing. We do have corporate partnerships up there, and we're hoping to continue to grow that. And the donor identification, that of course starts with the continued growth of our mailing list. So I don't know what the number is there, but it's getting close to several hundred. So we're starting to get a large number of people, good groundswell of support for people who want to stay connected with the museum. So we're going to continue all that. And finally, to that next slide that I've been anticipating, Marcus. This is something we can have a kind of preliminary conversation on here this afternoon. So we have the concepts of the General Assembly advocacy, the lobbyists, and the submit formal request. The submit formal request we're on top of. So I'm going to trust Jonathan to stay on top of that. He knows when the different forms are due and so forth. Will keep us up to speed on that. But as far as the General Assembly, getting back to what Tom said a minute ago about summer connections with our legislators, I don't know, Greg, Maggie, any of you, something you want to maybe suggest a mechanism by which we engage outside of the General Assembly session here this summer. We engage Delegate Campbell and Senator Head. I don't know if we have a particular opportunity for that. Should we invite them specifically to the Fall Foliage Fest and maybe have some, opportunity for them to get some face time with potential voters and so forth? Or is there another strategy we might take?
I have something percolating, but it's not quite ready for prime time yet.
Sure.
So let me work a little bit more on that, but it involves inviting them to the city and in the summertime. So yeah, let me work more on that. So
sure. And we can certainly support that in one way or another, whether it is simply making sure that the outreach trailer is opened up. I mean, for something like that, we would go ahead and invest on having a full power facility going, right? So we have that, but we could also maybe even do something extra, maybe we could set up a tent and have some of the curators or something, just to draw a little kind of groundswell of activity, make it worth their while.
absolutely.
just to be clear, and so that we have it in the minutes, I will just come out and say that from my perch, I saw, and I think we talked about this at length at the beginning of the meeting, that it was very productive in the museum partnering with the city to engage a lobbyist for our desires and to come up with proper strategy. I'll just open it up if there are anybody on the Waynesboro Advocacy Committee that has any hesitation about further engagement. In other words, should we go ahead and be prepared to engage this resource again in the upcoming fiscal year? So I'll just keep it simple. Is there anybody there who has hesitation about engaging with McGuire Woods again? Hearing none, we'll just make sure the minutes show that everyone saw the value in engaging with that. So we'll have the discussion, make sure that it's mutually beneficial, and continue on from there. Ryan and Jonathan, do you guys have anything you want to add about connections with the elected officials? We have others as well. I think that was mentioned in the report that we want to interface with some elected officials that are nearby whose constituents would definitely be would derive benefit from having a branch so close to them. So did you two have anything you wanted to add to that? What's already been discussed?
I think Tom was kind of getting close to something earlier with just the education component and these superintendents in the area, as well as the elected officials of local and surrounding areas. Just being any kind of letter of support we can get, and kind of organize that en masse. I know we had some trickling through this time, but I think a unified effort with certain deadlines, certain collective actions, I think would be helpful.
I don't have it in front of me, but I did started putting together a casual list of the different entities that I'm sure we could get letters of support from regarding our project. And through memory, I'll just start to rattle them off. I'm sure I'm missing a couple of obvious ones, but the service organizations such as Kiwanis and Rotary, with Chamber of Commerce, of course, wrote a letter last year. I don't see a reason they wouldn't do it again this year. The Center for Cold Waters Restoration, I think, would be appropriate for a letter of support and so forth. So anyway, what we can do for the minutes of this meeting is we can put that list together. I don't know, just here with the folks that are on hand, if there are organizations that you think we ought to specifically target for a letter of support for our project. Oh, wait, Jonathan, you already mentioned the superintendents. I think the schools are another important component of that list for sure.
In Carol's absence,
And you can add.
Go ahead.
You can add the South River Watershed Coalition too.
Yes, of course, Tom. Thank you.
And we should probably add Kane and Warner. At least Warner's office is always asking what they can do to help do different things.
And the timing might be good because they're both. Ryan's been interfacing with them. We're asking them for some funds for a separate, much smaller project at our Starling Avenue facility. So they're we're a familiar face for them, So the idea of interfacing with them now about the branch, I think the timing would be good. Okay, good.
I know in the McGuire Woods report, they specifically called out Senator Obenshain and Senator Deeds, but I would also add delegates Carlson, Laufer, and Runyon. I'm sure we have them invited as well.
Tom,
Carlson and Laufer being over in Charlottesville and Albemarle County.
All right, did you say Loeffler?
I believe it's Laufer.
Yeah, it's actually
Laufer,
but it's spelled that way, but I think it's pronounced Lafleur. But yeah, she's Albemarle County, Deeds is city, and I think it's Kaysen is a delegate for this in the city.
Oh, I thought it was
Colson, you're right. Yeah, it's something like that.
We'll look all that up and make sure we have our names set. But all right, so I think
I
that
got
would-
I got a nice personal note from Chris Runyon, thanking for coming out to represent the museum. So we want to keep him on the list.
Absolutely. And related, just so everyone knows, we and I mean, this is all kind of a little casual, I suppose, but we did provide museum provided the Center for Cold Waters Restoration one of our Jefferson Awards. So for an organization that has supported the museum for many years now. So congratulations, Greg, Maggie, Tom, and the rest of your colleagues. Also, at that same point, we provided a Jefferson Award for Senator Hanger, and he seemed very pleased, and his wife seemed very pleased to be recognized that way, and we did it right there at the mole outreach unit that he helped bring to Waynesboro. So just in, casual conversation, he says that, he's still behind the scenes a voice of support for us. So we'll continue that relationship, and anything that he can add to the mix will be appreciated. So just to summarize here where we're at, as far as building further support and for advocacy within the region, we're going to continue a lot of the same programs that we're doing. We just need to kind of begin to hash out the formalities, whether it's the lecture series and coming up with the specific speakers and dates, and or the outreach programs with VMH educators and so forth. Greg's working on kind of an engagement event, I'll just call it, that we'll learn more about in the future. We should be working on getting support via letters of support through a variety of organizations. We'll include a list that folks can add to or comment on in the minutes for this meeting. And lastly, we have beyond Senator Head and Delegate Campbell, we have a variety of senators and delegates nearby that we need to strategically come up with a way to engage them. I mean, certainly we can send them information. We can also request a one-on-one meeting, and we can even invite them to come over either to, one of our lectures or maybe visit our farmers market. But whether they would want to do that going outside their district, I don't know. It might be more beneficial for us to go visit them in their home office. So that's something we need to think about over the next month or so. So we'll supply the minutes for these various strategic activities for the Waynesboro Advocacy Committee, and we can revisit this at the June meeting and see if there's anything we need to refine in terms of our thinking. Marcus, do we have any other slides?
Yes, I think it's just questions, which,
Yeah, okay. As far as goals for the next fiscal year, July 1st to June 30th, does anybody else have anything they want to add? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close out the shared screen. All right, then on our agenda, labeled part 6, we just have open discussion. So I don't know if there are any other bits of business. And Scott, I know this is all new for you. I don't know if there's any big picture questions that came to mind as you attended your first WAC meeting.
Not really about your meeting here. I have a lot of questions that I probably can talk through with Jonathan, and get the information I'm looking for.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else have anything they want to discuss for the good of the committee?
I just want to mention that the Board of Trustees is meeting on May 18th. I'll be providing an update, a kind of summary of what we just went through today and what's happened since the last board meeting. I just wanted to bring up, are there any specific recommendations that we have for the full board? Any requests that we have of the full board that I should bring up at that meeting?
Tom, the only thing that I can think of is maybe there's some benefit in being just kind of going a little aggressive here and saying we had great success really getting the project in front of a lot of elected officials and so forth this past year. Maybe we just seek to get their approval to continue to continue to invest. That is through partnering with the city for a lobbyist should the city and the committee agree that that is a good idea. So in other words, kind of get their blessing on that now, rather than us saying, hey, we better get permission and get this going, but then we have to wait, a month or two before we have another meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was thinking along the same lines, but the funding for that comes through the foundation, does it not?
Yeah, so it would be worded as a request to the foundation.
Okay. Maybe you can help me word something along those lines.
Yeah, I'll put together a script for that.
The meeting.
I mean, if we have the blessing of the trustees and the money's raised specifically for Waynesboro, there really should be no problem. But I just think it's a good professional courtesy to go through those motions.
Completely agree, and it just keeps people up to date and active with voting this campus. So.
I have a question. I'm not sure how to manage this, but do we engage trustees to talk to their elected officials, since they're a wider net than we have necessarily here in the Valley?
Yeah, we've met with some success with that. It just really depends on the trustees. So it's like any other operation. We have some trustees that are incredibly active, and they have already, and they will continue to talk with their elected officials outside of the General Assembly session. And they'll specifically bring up the request for funding for the branch. And then there are just others that, will be there for us when we absolutely need them. But I don't know that they're going to be sending emails and making phone calls to their legislators or not, really.
Right.
It's hard to say. So we'll continue to press that, Greg, because we do recognize that network is a wider net than what we have on the committee.
Right.
I think something I learned in this session again is just how you have to be strategic about which representatives you want to, visit and advocate on behalf of the museum for, because they're ones that sit on the finance committees, they're ones that don't, they're ones that are in education, they're the ones that aren't. And so some of those people are more important to reach than others.
Very good. Okay. Anybody have anything else?
I do.
Maggie.
I think it is time that I, in true educator fashion, acknowledge you, Joe, and the staff, and all of us as volunteers for what has been accomplished this year. I mean, it's a lot. And I believe, since there's not always a lot of things that we can celebrate, that to publicly acknowledge those accomplishments is important. So I'm doing that. Yay, us.
Yeah. Well, we certainly couldn't get there without this kind of whole, coalition, so to speak, because when you look around, everyone's got these different roles. But I think it also just speaks to the significance of the project overall. It's going to touch, everything from education to economic development to tourism to quality of life. Then you throw on other layers of things like, Ryan can speak quite a bit about our Museums for All program that he's been growing, where we're getting people into our museum who otherwise normally can't afford it. Right. So, once we get the branch established, there's that. You have a population that doesn't think that museums are for them, but then they find out they are. So, Maggie, you're right. And I think the only reason we've done so much is because of the broad array of influence a project like this can have. So, thank you. That's awesome. I think you just single-handedly defeated the virus that's crippling me right now. So, all right, great. Okay, seeing that we don't have any other business, Tom, is it okay if we go ahead and adjourn? We have another meeting I didn't put it on the agenda. Oh, no, I did. The next meeting is June 4th. Tom, if it's okay with you as our trustee and committee chair, that we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
And we'll bring the minutes, I guess since we didn't have a quorum this time, we'll bring the minutes for the last meeting as well as this meeting to approved at that meeting.
That is correct. We tabled them this time, so we'll have to approve the April and May minutes at the June meeting.
Sounds good. And welcome, Scott. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
And we are adjourned.
All right.
Thanks all.
Perfect. Okay, thanks everyone. Appreciate
Bye.
it. We'll talk soon.